if you've collected this line as long as I have, you would know that female superhero figures outside of Wonder Woman and Batgirl are not as common as you think they are. Right. Um, Last year with the Titans build wave, you had the release of Raven and Donna Troy back to back, which surprised, I think, a lot of people, including myself. This year in June, we finally got Starfire. And then Huntress got announced recently, and she's also coming out next month. And then during the summer, with the Gigadon announcement, Fire was one of the characters in that lineup of figures for DC Multiverse. Now, if you don't know who this character is, it's understandable because she's not like a widely known character from what I don't know how I don't know that, okay? Like the only times I've seen this character is through two different animated series, Justice League Unlimited and Batman Brave and the Bold. Outside of that, I have no clue where else she has appeared in besides the comics, of course, right? So, but regardless, I'm very happy that this is another female superhero character having a representation in an action figure. It's just a good thing to see that it's not always a new Batman or a new Wonder Woman. As much as I love the DC Trinity, right? Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. Sometimes it's always nice to get someone that's different. And this is one of those cases where I'm just happy that this is a character that we've never seen in this line yet. She has probably appeared in other DC toy lines before, of course, but in terms of Mcfarlane, this is the first. So I'm happy. And with that, it's time we get into the review of this figure. And of course, let's start off with the data profile card and find out how she got her powers. And yes, she's going to fall over because unfortunately she has high heels. So, you know, if you own any figures with high heels, they don't like to stand. So she stood as long as she could before she fell over. So this photo is her in her all fire form, and we'll talk about that aesthetically, about how I feel about the way they made the figure. So let's find out who she is. What is her real name? And I like the fact that they didn't even say what source this is from for some reason. Usually they always do. I feel like I'm going to butcher pronouncing her name, so I apologize. So her real name is Beatriz Bia Bonilla da Costa. I apologize if I butchered pronouncing that name because I'm not good at pronouncing certain names sometimes. Originally a spy for the Brazilian Secret Service, Bia was on a mission when she came into contact with a strange chemical mix called, I don't even know, pyropiasm or piasm. What is that? Okay, her exposure to the substance gave her the metahuman ability to control a green flame that could cover her whole body and allow her to fly. So that explains how she got her powers. And that also, I guess that's it. I guess that's it. So she's basically like Human Torch. Think about it like Human Torch from Marvel. She'd go into flame mode and just fly and shoot fires with her hands. So, yeah, pretty cool. Even if the abilities are pretty simple, I still like these kind of characters because sometimes superpowers don't have to be something complicated to understand. Now, let's look into this figure aesthetically. So, there is a good and bad thing about the way they did this figure. And I want to say I guess this is what I think would be the negative. I don't know if transparent plastic was the way to go for this form. Now, if you like this, then that's cool. It's not really a problem. I mean, it still looks cool, right? But in the source material that you see behind her, because that box I'm keeping, because I like that artwork, you can tell that she's not like, transparent. Like they could have painted this figure in a green matte finish of some kind, maybe something like let's bring her in. I don't know, maybe something like the way they did She-Hulk here in Marvel Legends, right? It could have worked this way. I don't know. But I get the fact that the fire effects on her are supposed to be glowy, and I think they did that okay, right? Like if you see the way they painted the her hair, let me zoom in on that. So if you see the way they painted her hair, right, with that wash and her flame effects, I think that works, right? It works in a way. So they didn't have to use the transparent plastic, in my opinion, to kind of simulate like she's in the all green mode. They could have literally done it just like the She-Hulk. I think that would have been the better way. So the negative to me is the fact that the transparent plastic was used. However, it's still kind of cool. So where does the positive come in? Now, the positive for me is that transparent figures are not completely a bad thing. I really like the fact that you can see the inner frame of the figure. So I've never owned any transparent figures in this line. They have made some, like the Frostbite versions, I believe, are transparent, right? They have that type of plastic. And it's kind of nice to be able to see just the inner workings of how they sculpt the skeleton frames for these figures. Like, I didn't know there were 2 joints there in the stomach area. Like these are, and I hope my camera's picking this up, because you can see like the pegs for her legs, like where they go in, right? You can see all that, and aesthetically that's kind of cool. That's kind of like a positive. But the negative to this is the fact that if you're trying to do photos and trying to get her into like some good action poses, I think the fact that you can see the inside, let me fix what I was going to say, can sometimes look bad in photography. So this is the one instance where if they didn't opt for this transparent plastic and they just painted it like similar to the way they done it here in She-Hulk, but with that green in the back, like that kind of style green, and then made the hair similar to like the way they done it here with the wash, I think it would have been better. So, because I remember when this figure was announced, there were a lot of laughing emojis in that post, because yeah, it's not good. But what can you do? Because when are we going to see Mcfarlane ever make another version of this figure? And on top of that, there's been different iterations of how she goes into green mode. Most of the time that I've seen when she goes into green mode, she never has her bandana. The bandana disappears. Or the headband. Oh, not bandana, headband. I mean, so as you can see, she has a headband on her forehead. And if you've seen the art card, she doesn't have it. So there's that whole thing. So I don't know. Up to interpretation, I guess, right? And by what I mean is we probably won't see another version of her. Well, it took this long to finally get this figure, right? And it would be nice if they also made this version when she's not in her fire mode. So I hope down the road we do see that version turned into a figure. And if it happens to be another gold label, well, I'll still hunt for it regardless, right? So hopefully that happens. I don't know if it will. As for another negative that I have to bring up, because this is so prevalent, it is so visible, you can tell. I think this figure mold from the Nightfall Catwoman body has now become the new standard for female superheroes who are skinny. So if you think about Marvel Legends, in Marvel Legends, there are two body molds they like to use a lot for their comic figures, for both the male and female. This feels like that is happening, because the last figure that reused this mold was Starfire. Even though they retooled a little bit of it, they painted it up and changed it around, you can tell that it's her. And then prior to Starfire, the Supergirl figure also reused this mold. Not the one from Injustice 2, the comic version. So, I don't know if I like this, but this is basically starting to become a trend in this line. And I will make a video about the topic of reusing molds, when it's good and when it isn't good. And this is one of those moments where I don't know how I feel. I think it works, but the fact that you can still see like that seam line of like what Catwoman's outfit was, this is an example where it doesn't work. Because when you compare this to the source material, you can't see her clothes. I mean, she's not naked. She's wearing clothes when she goes off of her green mode, so her clothes doesn't burn off, right? I mean, Human Torch, when he goes into flame mode, it doesn't burn off his clothes. It's more like a green overlay that just covers everything. So, yeah, that's exactly why I don't like the fact that this figure reuses an existing mold, and instead of getting rid of those lines, they're visible right there. And then on top of that, like, they added flame effects here on her waist, but then they didn't even color it in like this style, so it just blends in. So those are kind of like the negatives I have. But positive is mainly just the fact that it's sometimes nice to see the inner workings of an action figure with these transparent figures. So, another positive, I think that's a pretty good head sculpt. I think this head sculpt came out okay. I like it. It's not the worst. And I like the fact that they gave her pupils, because in that source material in the box, she doesn't have her pupils visible. So, but in the cartoons, she did. So I really do like that they kept that. So that's not a bad head sculpt. And then as for her effects, accessories that she comes with, which were on her hands the whole time, these, I'm going to pop these off so you can see that they're removable. All right. I don't know if these are reused from anything. They might be new, but it's pretty cool. I like these, right? It's like she's charging up, ready to shoot fire at somebody, which they could have included like one more accessory where there's this like attack that she does in the cartoons where she puts her hands together and shoots out like a long streak of fire. I wish they included that as well. So, but I mean, like, these aren't bad, I mean, for charging, but again, if you're trying to do some sort of like action pose or something where she's fighting someone, not exactly, right? The ones you would want to use. And then for some reason, they decided to just give her open gripping hands. I don't know why. Because I mean, they do fit into the socket for these accessories, but wouldn't it make sense if it was like fist hands? So yeah, again, it's really weird decision to give her those hands. And those are the same hands that are from the Catwoman figure, which worked for the Catwoman figure because she came with her whip. So, you know. So as for articulation, let's look into articulation for this figure. You have the standard articulation, right? You have butterfly joint, or whatever we like to call it. Her arms can go back all the way. She has nice double jointed elbows, so I do like that. She does have your typical movement here, and as well as for her legs, can she kick out? She can kick out this much. She can also do double jointed. And then as for her feet, she does have articulation there as usual. Gonna rock side to side, and there's toe articulation for her high heels. And can she do the splits? Somewhat she can do the splits, right? And then for her waist, now my copy is still new, so there is like tightness around here, but technically it should be able to move, right? So you can see the movement, and then side to side, and then as well as the upper cut should be able to move, tilt side to side, go back and forth. There is barely any ab crunch that's visible, but if you wanted to lean back, it's pretty good. And then as for her head, it can rotate side to side like that. It can look up a little bit. It can look down, pretty good. However, side to side, it kind of works. So, not exactly a good neck articulation right there, but yeah, there's fire when it comes to articulation. Before I end the review, I will say this. Another good aspect, I guess, that I like about the transparent plastic is that if you were doing photos outside, right, the transparent plastic does glow in the light. So you can do some really cool photos where it looks like she's glowing. So I think there is good and bad. Let's just put it at that. There is both a good thing and a bad thing when it comes to the use of this plastic and the choice for why they decide to go with it. But as I've said before, every figure is not perfect. There is no such thing as a perfect action figure. So for the negatives that it has, there are positives. And in this case, I still like this figure even with the way it came out, because I can use the positives that I see for certain photos in certain angles or certain lighting angles. You just have to get creative. So yeah, with that said, I hope you enjoyed the look at this figure and a little bit of context to understand who she is. And I hope that in the future we can see more female superhero characters that are not Wonder Woman and Batgirl that are different. So, for example, Zatanna. I'm still waiting, Todd. Please make a Zatanna figure, because I already seen them post a Zatanna statue. So, still waiting for that figure to come to DC Multiverse, because I really want to complete the Justice League Dark Shelf, because there's already Constantine, Swamp Thing, Etrigan, Deadman. There's no Zatanna, so still waiting on that. Alright, with that, take care, and I'll see you in the next video.